Have you ever stopped to think how easy it might be for someone to steal from you? Even if you're doing everything right. I'm talking about sophisticated scams that prey on smart, successful people. Business owners, entrepreneurs, even the people who teach others how to protect their assets. The truth is, in today's world, all it takes is one phone call, one email, or one small slip in your process, and tens of thousands of dollars can vanish with almost zero chance of getting it back. Welcome back to another episode of the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lonergan, and today I'm joined by someone who has seen this play out far too often, Megan Kinney, managing attorney at Land of Lincoln Legal Aid. For over a decade, Megan has been on the front lines of helping people navigate the aftermath of fraud, scams, and financial exploitation. In this episode, Megan and I pull back the curtain on the exact tactics scammers use to target business owners, their employees, and even their families. You'll hear real-life stories that will make you shake your head, the psychological triggers scammers exploit to get you to act without thinking, and the simple yet powerful safeguards you can put in place to protect your business and your personal accounts. By the end of this conversation, you'll not only understand the threats, you'll have an action plan to make yourself and your business a much harder target. And here's the thing, what Megan and I are talking about today is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, keeping more of what you earn. Whether it's through airtight fraud prevention or advanced tax strategies, the goal is the same: protect and maximize your wealth. If you're ready to start building out your own tax strategy so you can keep more of your hard-earned money, head over to vitalstrategies.com/tax. It's the first step to putting a plan in place that works as hard as you do for your business. So grab a notebook, lean in, and listen closely, because what you learn today could save you from making one of the most expensive mistakes of your life. On today's show, we've got Megan Kinney. Megan, I'm excited about this conversation because I think the things that we're going to talk about today are important to all of us. I think when we think about some of the, I'm going to call them fraud schemes out there, I've seen family members affected. I've got friends that are entrepreneurs that have been affected. I think we don't have to look far to see in the news people being impacted on a regular basis where they've wired or sent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to people that they think are, they need to send money to for some reason or another. And at the end of the day, it turns out to all be a problem. So thank you so much for joining us here today to have this conversation. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So I think when we look at the problems that the entrepreneur and people in general are facing is, scams, fraud, deceit, phishing, whatever those things are, it just feels bad, right? Like your money's gone and you're not getting it back. And then we start to feel violated. Oftentimes there can be shame, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I fell for that thing. Now we're just unsure as to who we trust in general. And I think philosophically, it shouldn't be this easy to steal from someone who's doing the right things. And I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation. All of this started, we were at one of our family members' weddings. We were sitting by the pool and we were talking through some of these issues. And it's like, I had some friends that were impacted. And, I just look at your role as managing attorney at Land of Lincoln Legal Aid in East St. Louis, and the number of people that you get contacting you saying, hey, we've been scammed. What do we do about this? And so I appreciate you just spending the time joining us here today. If it's okay, can you give us a little bit of your background and maybe some of the things that you're seeing out there in the world that people are unfortunately having to deal with?
Yeah, you bet. So I've been at Land of Lincoln Legal Aid. So we provide pre-legal services to folks. I've been here 13 years and I started as a staff attorney. I started by advocating for folks in nursing homes and then moved more into the senior citizen project. So all of my clients were over 60 years old, and I would help grandparents, caregivers, and the senior citizen demographic with all sorts of types of cases that would happen, including financial exploitation cases that would happen to seniors. And so I've been doing this, largely for all of my law career, and given a few presentations on this through Illinois State Bar Association on preventative measures that we can do to help our seniors to make sure that they are not victims of scams. I've also served on the St. Clair County Elder Justice Council, where we talk about scams and frauds being perpetrated on seniors in our community. So this is, in my opinion, it's kind of the crime of the century, and people are getting scammed every single day. And it is, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it's something I think everybody needs to be aware of, because it is not just somebody, your neighbors. It's not just one of your community members anymore. It's your family members. It's somebody you know has most likely been scammed out of money at this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I want to say, oh, as entrepreneurs, we have it all figured out. We've got our defenses up. It's okay. Well, I have two examples. I had a friend of mine that him and his wife own a business together, and she got a call, and they had specific details about a former employee that was in legal trouble, which they knew about, which was real, and said, "Hey, there's an outstanding bench warrant. You didn't show up, and you have to pay this fine. Otherwise, we're going to do all these bad things to you." And this was like on a Saturday, and it was the actual county sheriff's phone number. And they were freaking out. They were like, oh my gosh, these are people that sort of do the right things and follow the rules. And they're like, I can't believe I, did this. And so they were like trying to solve this problem. And the person didn't want to let them off the phone. And her husband was calling, like trying to get in touch with her, and was like, what is going on here? And finally, like, hung up the phone, got in touch with her husband. She explained the thing, and he was like, let's pause for a second. Let's just call the number, the sheriff's department, and just sort of all like get to the bottom of this. And it was a scam, right? It was totally fake, but the level of sophistication was shocking to me. And then I'm in another peer group, and unfortunately, one of the guys, and he spoke up, which I appreciate, because I just think about some of the shame that can come with this, and like I can't believe I fell for this thing. But he was with his daughter. Again, I don't know all of the details of the call, but he got a phone call, answered it, and again, it was something he missed from a legal point of view, and he was in trouble, and he needed to send some money to sort of resolve this problem. And he had the money, and he thought, I'm not interested in dealing with this. I will just like make it go away. And after he sent the money, he figured out, like, started looking into it and figured out he sent this money to bad actors and had tried to get the money back, and there was just no good recourse for that. So I want to highlight that this is not just stuff that's happening, because I had a family member that got a call on their home line and said, "Hey, we're Microsoft and we're going to do this thing," and they basically hold your computer ransom until you either pay them or not. And they've got somebody on the phone sort of walking you through how to send them money. And so, like, I've been a part of that type of scheme too. But I'd be curious to hear some of the real world examples that you've come across that, maybe seemed especially sneaky, that we should just have our radar up on, and also be cluing our family and friends into.
Yeah. So I think first off, scammers are really, really adept at preying on a couple things. One is your fear. You don't want to get in trouble with police, and you don't want to get court system, and you don't want to be in trouble. So you're just going to deal with whatever, because the sheriff, quote unquote, is calling. I think they're also predatory on lonely people. So we kind of talked about, I work with seniors, and unfortunately, seniors are quite lonely. And so it's texting with seniors, we call them on the phone, and they begin to open up. And so I think for entrepreneurs, though, specifically, entrepreneurs are often movers and shakers, and they get things done. That's why they're successful. When they're ready to take care of a problem, they're ready to pay the bills, pay the invoice. Oh, this invoice is outstanding 60 days. Holy smokes, let me pay it. Let me get it done. They are DSDing, as I like to say, getting stuff done. And they move too fast. And they don't stop to think, hold on, this doesn't sound right. And people forget that they can just press the pause button and just say, hold on, like your friend did. Let me just call the sheriff's office. And then you realize you just spent 2 hours hemming and hawing, thinking you're in trouble, but you're not. And the real sheriff says, no, we didn't call you at all. That's a scam. And so getting entrepreneurs to the point of actually pausing for a second and thinking about what's going on, and maybe asking somebody to say, like, hey, can you check this out for a second? Do we actually owe John Smith $30,000 for renting tents 2 months ago? Did that really happen? But real world example include, I was at an outreach with 8 seniors. I was having lunch with them. So we start getting on talking about scam calls. And every single one of them had received a call that their grandchild was in jail out of the United States, fill in the blanks, Mexico, Guatemala, or wherever, and they needed bail money immediately. Hysterically, one lady was like, Well, thank God, Sharon called me and I had to remind Sharon she didn't even have any grandkids. And it was like, oh, yeah, it is a scam. I don't even have grandkids. Why are they calling me? So seniors are getting a little bit more adept at identifying some of these things. But the fact that like 8 people at a lunch all got the same call, I mean, it's pervasive. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one example. I've heard of somebody getting involved in a Bitcoin scheme where they're taking their real dollars out of the bank account and they are acquiring Bitcoin, transferring that Bitcoin in the blockchain, all the information that comes with Bitcoin, not understanding that their real money bought real digital crypto, but that digital
Mm-hmm.
crypto is gone. And so is their money.
Yeah.
And you can't go back in time. And crypto is particularly scary because there really isn't much of a footprint that you can trace. And we've had, people who fall in scam to that. There's Bitcoin ATMs, and that's how this whole
Mm-hmm.
like planet exists. And so we hear scams all the time of such and such is happening. You need to go get Walmart gift cards. And they go to Walmart and they buy $1,000 in gift cards. And they say, well, I never sent the gift cards. You know what they did? They scratched off the back of the gift card and they scratched off the pin and they sent photos to the scammers. So
Mm-hmm.
those gift cards were as good as gone.
Yeah.
But there's like kind of a disconnect that like, well, I didn't give them the money. I didn't hand you $1,000, but you did in this digital world. You did.
Yeah. 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 No, that's so interesting because like the Walmart example is if you have a gift card, I know you can turn that into a money order at Walmart. And so it's like, I can turn that into cash pretty quickly. I don't have to go buy a bunch of, groceries with that $1,000. I can take that and use it. And man, that's so interesting. And I also think about the overseas bail issue because you hear about actually legitimate issues of people being in, let's just say Mexico, and they get arrested and they do need bail money. And whether it's legitimate or not, I mean, the reason they're arrested could be basically a police scam, right? Like they're just effectively holding these people hostage until they pay to be set free. And so you're sort of compounding a real scams on top of scams, right? Like, oh, I'm going to make up this thing that could be real and impact you in a way. And it's like, I think about my family members. Shoot, I don't keep track of them all. They could be in, South America for all I know. And if I got a call and they needed the money, I could be like, oh, geez, well, maybe they're calling me because I understand I'm good at solving problems and we can figure this out. So yeah, that one, it's just shocking to me how sophisticated and how they're using, like you said, fear and compliance, authority to get us to send money in a way that we're never going to get it back. So yeah, this is good. And we've talked about some phone calls as a way, and I think we need to protect against that. I think cell phones maybe help out a little bit there. I hardly answer a phone number unless I'm aware. But like, for example, I saw the Clinton Police Department was calling me, so I answered it. And I was fortunate that it was actually the Clinton Police Department, and my daughter was like illegally parked and they were going to tow her car. And so I like got in touch with my daughter. I'm like, I don't care what you're doing, go move your car. So I was happy I answered that call. But, when they show up on caller ID that way, it is challenging to know whether it's real or not. But yeah, so we've talked about phone calls, but what other ways are people getting?
Yeah, so email scams, I think, are common, right? So there is email scams within organizations. I think it's important for entrepreneurs to think about and to train their staffs, especially if they have staff doing payroll and accounts payable, because the scams say, hey, we have this invoice that needs to be paid and click this link and we spend. How convenient for the account payable coordinator, right? Put in the credit card information, it's paid. So having internal control, right, with your staff. So one example of this is payroll receives an email and it says, employee John Smith, who's a real employee at your organization, they want to change their direct deposit. And sure, that's fine. Maybe they're chasing a new account bonus and they're opening up a new checking account and direct deposit is supposed to be routed there. and your payroll coordinator doesn't think anything of it. He just puts in the new routing information, account information, starts sending paychecks to this new account. And John Smith calls payroll, was like, what's going on? What me in the month? What's happening? And well, it's in your new account. And then John Smith says, I didn't authorize my new account. Like, this wasn't me. And so this is, of course, a scam email that comes into the payroll department. They somehow have figured out a real employee's name to tie to it. But one control or one measure that a company can do is to say, okay, so if somebody's put in a new direct deposit request or wants to change the payroll information, I'm going to go down and talk to them in person. I'm going to go down to John Smith's office and I'm going to ask him, hey, is your new bank Chase? Is this all correct? I'm going to call John Smith on the phone, verify, right? So that's half the battle in this, is just stopping for a second, putting the phone down, setting the email down, turning off the computer, and just go in live time to the real human being to talk to. And so that's certainly a very easy scam created over email. We talked a little bit. Sorry, were you about to say something on that one?
No. Well, I was just thinking about internally, like we have investment accounts set up for clients. And I like all of the protocols that Schwab and the custodians we use have. To make a change, we have to submit a document signed by the client. And then we also have an internal, like we have to have verbal confirmation from the client that they're changing that information, And so we generate that paperwork, we send it to their known email address, and then we have to talk to them to make sure that, their email didn't get hacked and they're changing it to, some new bank account that they don't control. So yes, I think all of those things are great. But again, it's so easy to, in the digital age, hey, I got a new bank account. Here's the routing and information. Please set it up.
Yeah.
And it could be coming from the same email, right? But the number of people that can get their email hacked, it's easy.
Oh, so, yeah. I had a coworker. I mean, he's not even old. He's 29 years old. He got an email that was like, hey, you're supposed to receive a UPS package. He, of course, didn't think the UPS package was coming, but he receives this email and he's looking around the office and he talks to our front desk staff. He's like, hey, supposed to get a UPS package? You seen that? Of course not. That's also a scam. They clicked on the link and it's as easy as that, right? Because it looks just like a normal UPS operation on your ship. So one idea too, depending on, maybe you don't need this if you're a small company, but there are trainings out there, right? To train your staff to go through different videos and iterations to identify scams, to see like, hey, hover over the links because it doesn't say it's from UPS. It says it's from Bank of America. Having your staff train and to identify these things, I think, is half the battle. And so maybe an entrepreneur wants to look at investing a little bit of money into training their staff and going through modules. And maybe that training company also sends some fake emails to see if people will bite on the fake people whistling for something like that. So that might be one suggestion as well, is to just also train your own staff members to be aware of what these emails might look like.
Yeah. I think about what the cost is to falling prey to some of this. It's usually very expensive. I can think of scenarios where, I'm just thinking the floor for business owners might be 10 grand. And then the ceiling is, could be a crazy high number. Right. And so I think about the cost of doing that. And I think about the relatively low cost of engaging with somebody to do some training. I love the idea of you engage with them and before you tell anybody, they sort of attack, the organization. We're going to send some emails. We're going to see how people respond to this. We're going to make some phone calls and see where we can trip people up. Because the nice thing about doing that is like, oh, hey, this could have been really bad. Fortunately, this was somebody we paid to sort of test this out and see how we did. And we either did really well, like congratulations, everybody, or hey, here's a few areas we need to shore up because it's a problem. So I love the training idea with the concept of, hey, let's test the system and see how we're going to do, and we'll go from there. And then one other thing you brought up, I think of where all of this maybe started was I think about, those emails we all used to get from like the Nigerian prince on like, hey, I need to transfer you some money and then you'll transfer it back. And, all of these, and they were just so poorly written. And I just think about the sophistication, right? Like those worked because we all got them. And a tiny percentage of people like responded to it because they didn't know any better, thinking it was legit. And so I don't know. I think of where we started and where we're at now. I'm just thinking about next iterations with AI and the ability to, you know, I used some software to spoof my own voice and create a podcast episode. And I'm like, there's nothing stopping somebody from, Joe Rogan has, he's out there everywhere. And he's like, if I wouldn't have known that wasn't me, I would have assumed that was me, and this is the guy that, whose voice they were using. So I'm concerned that the sophistication is going to keep ramping up and we just have to be vigilant on like making sure that we're not falling prey to these things. So this is great. Is there any other examples that we should be talking about that we haven't touched on yet?
I mean, there's, this is not necessarily for the entrepreneur, but your own family members of like, if you've got a senior who lives alone and is online all the time, and there's Facebook scams often. And you can glean so much from Facebook about a person that, you don't even have to be an adept scammer, but you could start a conversation of, well, it looks like you had a fun trip to Florida with your grandkids. You know so much about you. And it's very, very easy to tap into that loneliness, to tap into that senior, and they think it's a friendship that's budding, or they think it's a relationship, right? So you hear about all the time people think like, what? Like a boyfriend in Germany. I had to send him $600 a month because he's saving up enough money to buy me a plane ticket in the house in Germany.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there next. And your heart breaks.
Yeah.
Because they think it's completely real. They think that that person on the other line of the Facebook Messenger is completely a real person. And then the hard questions come out. Well, have you ever talked to them on the phone? No. Ever met them in person? No. You know where they live? Like, their address? Did you look up the address? Did you just pressing the pause button and just like define a little bit of logic to it goes a long way. And so I think thinking about what do our digital lives look like? What does our Facebook account, Instagram look like? Is it public? People find out information. It's that easy to do, unfortunately, especially to seniors. And you can tap into seniors who just do repeat payments every single month, for instance. And so that's one. There's other predatory stuff too that we got to think about. So like solar panel scams right now. There's like door-to-door salespeople who are selling, high 5-digit solar panels to seniors and to other people. And they're maybe getting like $20 back as a discount on their electric bill. I mean, remember $20 monthly rebates you need to pick up 80 brands in the pay?
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I've even seen some young people that were, I'll say, offered some job opportunities, right? Like, oh, hey, here's an opportunity. You just need to send us, so many dollars and we'll send you the like welcome packet. And it's like, no, that's not.
Yeah,
that's not
never
gonna
send them.
help
There's another kind of common one, like a lottery scam. So like you won the lottery in Canada, even though you've never been to Canada and never played the lottery there, but somehow you won that Canadian lottery. But you have to send us $200 for the taxes on the money. But then the $200 wasn't enough. Now you have to send $500 more because there was this other thing that happens. And in your mind, you just think, I'm getting $1 million. So what's $700? What's $1,000?
Right.
What's another $10,000? Because I'm about to get $1 million. And people get so tunnel vision on the payoff, on the reward center of their brain, that they're willing to continue to write checks. We were literally just writing a check to a scammer. And so, the lottery scams are still pervasive.
Yeah. No, this is great. So I think you've given us some really good ideas on how to prevent some of this, but maybe we just slow down for a second and just walk through a little bit of that. I think one of the key things I've heard you say is like, let's just slow down. Like, we're not in a rush. We don't need to send the money right this second. We can probably spend less than 5 minutes verifying that we should do this, right? We
Yeah.
can make a phone call. We can check with a partner. We can do that. We can slow down. So what else is, I've heard you say a few other things, but what else is on the list of things that we should do to really protect ourselves from all these different opportunities?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the slowing down and the verification, right? So I had the
Hmm.
same situation happen. I was on a girls' trip. One of my friends gets called from the sheriff's office, same number from the sheriff's office, shows up in the sheriff's office. And I'm like laughing. And she's like super worried. And I'm like, no, this is
Hmm.
like, let me show you how this works. Hang up the phone, or we got the voicemail. And of course, it was like, do this thing right now. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to call that number back, but we're going to Google the number of the sheriff's department. What is it? And sure
Hmm.
enough, the sheriff's department was like, here's what we're called to know. There's a
Yeah.
scammer out there, right? So it's the pausing and it's the verification.
Yeah.
I think also making sure, if your advanced directive department order, right, you have power of attorney, agent, making sure that's on file at the bank. And any comments or any notifications to the bank might be
Hmm.
helpful to say, and yeah, my son is my power of attorney agent. His name is someone who is at this address. And I authorized him to, take out $200 a month for what, because I like to, whatever, do,
Hmm.
go shopping. And so the bank already knows, like, oh, yeah,
Hmm.
Mrs. Smith told me, like, yeah, it comes in once a month. Just take out 200. Banks generally have like some pretty firm regulations, right, around
Hmm.
protecting their clients. And they want to protect their clients' money, right? They want it to
Yep.
stay in the client's bank account. So it's just some general good housekeeping about power of attorney documents. If you have those, communicating with your bank, if there are certain, like maybe your company never needs to use a wire
Hmm.
for any reason. So maybe communicating with your bank that, like, take that option off the table. If anybody calls you from my company and wants to wire money, stop that immediately, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So doing some proactive things with your bank and financial accounts is helpful. I think digital things like multi-factor authentication is helpful. Using things also in your own, maybe your personal cell phone, just like password keepers, things like that. Not to say we get hacked on our cell phones a lot, but things come up on our cell phones and we get, texts and
Hmm.
things, we get emails that we can so easily click Apple Pay, done.
Hmm. Yep.
And just to stop yourself, if the multi-factor authentication is just a way to slow you down for a second, maybe
Yep.
setting that up, right? So those
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
things that I'm thinking of off the top of my head to protect yourself. But like also educating people too, like, Social Security is really never going to call you,
Hmm.
as is the IRS. The IRS is going to hunt you down, but they're going to send you mail.
Yeah.
They're never going to call you, right? You're never
Hmm.
going to like go to jail for your tax bill tomorrow. You might go to
Right.
the jail, but it's going to be through a long court process and you're going to be in court and there's going to be a judge who says things.
Yeah.
But the acting on that immediacy, if
Hmm.
somehow we can train ourselves, again, press pause and say, that's weird that the IRS is calling, and realizing some of these things and just sharing that with loved ones, business partners, etc. Be like, hey, John, you told me that Social Security called you because you're not paying your FICA tax. Like that
Hmm.
didn't sound right. And so using your network, right? Using trusted business partners, calling you, Pat, to say, hey, does this
Yep.
sound weird to you?
In today's episode, we've been talking about protecting what you've worked so hard to build. And while scams and fraud can take your money in an instant, there's another place many entrepreneurs lose money every single year: taxes. Most business owners overpay, not because they want to, but because they don't have a proactive tax strategy in place. That's exactly why I created vitalstrategies.com/tax to help entrepreneurs like you keep more of what you earn, legally and strategically. When you visit, you'll get the tools, ideas, and guidance you need to start building a plan that works year-round to protect your wealth and maximize your results. So after you finish this episode, head to vitalstrategies.com/tax. Take the first step towards making your business a fortress, not just against scams, but also against unnecessary taxes too. Okay, Megan, we've talked through a number of strategies. Is there anything else you can think of before we sort of move on to the next topic?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about, strategies kind of in your personal life, but this also for entrepreneurs is something to think about is what information do you share on your website, right? You share the CFO's email address and the president's email address, or do you give just a front-facing email address, but their internal email address is different? And, what information do you share in the biographies of your president and your CFO of the company, et cetera? Because sure, there has to be, some front-facing information to the greater public, but it also can be quite predatory, right? So the more information a scammer can glean, the more credible they sound when they're going to call your accounts payable to say, hey, President Kinney said that this was okay. And, here's her email address. They weirdly know so much about your company, but they gleaned it all from your website. And so kind of thinking about, again, what do you want to share online? How can you kind of be protective in the information that you share? Because the World Wide Web is open for everybody.
Yeah, it is. And I think those are fantastic. And I think one thing that you're highlighting here on these is it's almost good to have a little friction in the process. I think about your example with the wires, right? Like if I can just call my bank and they'll wire money, that's different than having a protocol where I have to go into the bank and sign for the wire personally, right? And so you can put those things in place. And a few weeks ago, we had a conversation with a cybersecurity expert, and he said, the interesting thing about cybersecurity is you can put all of these protections in place, but if there's a weak spot and the weak spot's with the owner, because we like to do things fast and easy, and so forget having multi-factor authentication because it takes too long. He was like, you hold the keys to the castle and you're just leaving them on your desk for somebody to come take. And so put those things in place. So if people decide to act like you, there's some friction in the process where it will get slowed down because you'll be like, wait a minute, I'm not logging into whatever. And like, for example, my bank notifies me via text message when things are happening, like automatic payments and that type of thing. And it's kind of nice to just go, oh, okay, yep, that's the thing I'm used to going out. But if it's a thing that's not used to going out, at least I have some time to get it unwound, before it ends up with the wrong person. So I think a little bit of friction in those processes is actually good, even though it can be frustrating in the moment that, it's going to take me a minute longer to get something done. But at the end of the day, it's
well worth it.
It's good. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And it's going to be one of those things too, from the owner, from the president, all the way down. And and maybe even shouldn't hem and haw about it and just say like, hey, this is a thing we need. And yeah, is it frustrating? Yeah, it will be a little bit, but this is an order of perfection that's now, and create that buying with the rest of the company. So yeah, your account payable department might not be able to work as quickly, but it's well worth it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also, we haven't really talked about this, but unfortunately, the number of examples I've seen from somebody internally in the business taking advantage of some freedom to move money around is also there. So I think as we're talking about controls, just having, like I've seen people have a stamp for checks, and I'm like, anybody that has that stamp can now sign checks on the owner's behalf. Like, burn that, like get rid of that. You actually sign all the checks, pay attention to what you're signing, make sure that, things are happening. And I don't know, I think there's also just a good level, like a lot of our clients are just so in their financial details, like that's just good practice. Because if something looks off, like, hey, what's happening over here? The times we've seen abuse start to happen is the owner's sort of busy. There's lots of money flowing through the business and people just figure, I'm just going to skim a few off here. I deserve it. Or I just need a short-term loan. I'll pay it back. And then they're like, that worked. And then all of a sudden the problem snowballs and that's a massive issue. So
yeah, and I think, it's hard, right, to sometimes invest in some of these really strong measures of like hiring an outside company to do an audit twice a year, 4 times a year. Open up your books, let somebody else who's outside the company take a look and just poke around to see what's going on, right? Give you feedback about what's going on. Is there any weird stuff going on? Smooth skill, and let them take a look and do their jobs, right? And I think that's so good financial hygiene, right, to put into place. And that can be really hard though, because that's quite a cost. But thinking about measures that you're gonna do quarterly, biannually, something like that, where somebody's taking a look at your financials, that's not the people who are involved in creating the lead.
Yeah. 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 No, I think that's fantastic. Megan, this has been wonderful. I think wonderful in a sad kind of way. I'm so glad that we're having this conversation because I think it needs to be brought out there. The level of sophistication is going up. There's financial incentive out there to go be a bad actor because if it can unfortunately pay nicely. And so I think having these safeguards in place that we've discussed are critical. And I just think of, again, slow down, create some friction in the process, put some safeguards in place, get a second set of eyes on anything that smells off, right? Like if this seems weird, just go talk to somebody. It's okay. And then I love the quarterly sort of training and testing and just audit to see what's happening with your organization. I think that could be good from cybersecurity all the way through the old school, like phone call, Nigerian email scam, like just make sure nobody's falling prey to those things because there's just too much money on the line, right? I feel like whether we're in our business or our personal lives, we work too hard to have somebody come along and unjustly take our money, right? And, we think of the impact that could have. I was talking to one of our clients and they were talking about a law firm that they worked with that went through an embezzlement and had to shut its doors. I'm just like, it's just an example, like you could lose your business if these things, get out of hand. And business is hard enough the way it is, let alone giving your money to somebody that shouldn't have it. So then I think about what the opposite side of that looks like, right? If we're proactive, we spend a little time and energy, we've built a profitable business and it's protected and it's resilient even against, some of the more sophisticated attacks. So I think this has been great. Yeah. Any final comments?
Yeah, last thing I want to mention too. So we talk about being proactive. We talk about putting these safeguards up. And the really, really unfortunate reason why, because law enforcement, unfortunately, is almost next to never getting your money back for you.
Yep.
Once that wire happens, once the Bitcoin transfer happens, it's as good as lighting your wallet on fire. It is gone. The money is gone. You're never going to get it back. But, this is so hearsay, but I had heard once that the FBI isn't even going to start to investigate unless it's over $500,000.
Yeah.
Which is, a monstrous sum of money, but clearly the crimes are happening so often that they're putting a level on it before they even investigate, which is so telling about this. Yes, you should still report it to authorities. You should report it to your bank. You should make a police report so you have memorialized what happened. And as you kind of mentioned from the top, there's going to be some shame around that. But it also, maybe it does save somebody in the future. Maybe it's an important lesson for the bank as well. But ultimately, the safeguards are your best measure to keep your money because law enforcement's not going to, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point to all this. It's like, we can get scammed. And we think like if somebody walked into my, house and took the money and I had their phone number, like I would just, and I knew who they were and had them on camera, you'd go solve that problem. But unfortunately, the person on the other end of this is anonymous and they're almost impossible to trace. And so, that is great. The likelihood of recovery is so low. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's so much hassle to try to get any of these dollars back. It's just not happening. So we need to be proactive on the front end. Megan, this has been wonderful. I appreciate all of your time and insight. I also just want to highlight you are one of my favorite people. You're just an amazing human being. So I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate you spending your time and your expertise here on this episode today. So thank you.
Oh, Pat, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Vital Wealth Strategist podcast. I hope you found real value in this conversation with Megan, and that it's given you both the awareness and the tools to protect yourself, your business, and the people you care about. If you know someone who could benefit from this information, please share this episode with them. It might just save them from making an expensive mistake. And before we wrap, if you're ready to take the next steps in protecting and growing your wealth, go to vitalstrategies.com/tax. It's where you can start building a strategy designed to help you minimize your taxes, keep more of what you earn, and position your business for long-term success. And remember, you're a vital entrepreneur. You're vital because you're the backbone of our economy, creating opportunities, driving growth, and making an impact. You're vital to your family, creating abundance in every aspect of life. And you're vital to me because you're committed to growing your wealth, leading with purpose, and creating something truly great. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community of vital entrepreneurs. I appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back here next time on the Vital Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help entrepreneurs minimize their taxes, master wealth, and optimize their lives.